Okay, I got something a little bit different today. Now, I am not a camera expert. I am not a photographer. I'm not even a videographer. You figure that out if you've watched my channel and you've seen any of my videos so far. But nevertheless, I have a new fun thing to talk about today. If you're familiar with the Neewer brand, they make a lot of different products for real cameras as well as phone cameras. And in this cute little black case, I've got this macro lens. It's pretty big. This is a mobile camera lens designed for mobile. It's got a 17mm end here. And then you've got the screw-on cap here at the end with the lens. And this is a 2x teleconverter lens with macro. It does come with a couple of additional lenses for 200 and 300. Got a couple of those. Got their little caps. And this all comes in this little case that I showed you. You've got the lens pieces in here. And you've got a top in here with a little pocket. They give you a cleaning cloth. Of course, you gotta have a cleaning cloth. And stickers to remove debris, I assume. Little stickers. I don't know if you can see those to allow you to clean the lenses. Because, man, if you've looked at your smartphone camera lens lately, I guarantee you it's dirty. They always need to be cleaned. At least these have caps on them so you can kind of keep them clean when you're not using them. And all of this is enabled by this. I mentioned that it's got the 17mm at the end here. That's very important because you need to be able to then get that onto your phone, the phone cameras, with the same kind of adapter. So what I also have is this Neewer phone case for my Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra. And it's got these rings. I don't know if you can see, there's rings around the camera lenses and like a little slit here. That's designed to work with this piece, which has magnets, these 3 magnets around the edge here. And those magnets fit onto the 3 magnets on the case, if you can see them. I don't know how well you can see that. There's magnets here and here. And this is designed to slide onto it. And it fits on like that. And once you have this on, you can do a couple of different things. It really just works with this middle one right here. But you also have this round piece which you can use to attach ND filters, which I already had. I already had an ND filter that fit into a clip-on. So now I have the ability to just take this and screw it onto this adapter. So now I can use ND filters. And this is 67mm. So with this one case, now I have the ability to use lenses, not just this macro, but whatever other 17mm lenses are available. So that can be pretty handy. But what does it do? And can a person who doesn't know what they're doing use them, or is it just a wasted effort? That's what I'm going to show you and talk about today. So we will talk more about this phone case and this macro lens and how it compares to the built-in zoom cameras on the S25 Ultra. Let's go. Okay, so let's take a closer look at the case. I showed it to you before, but now we've got it here, a little bit closer of a look. And so now you can see, I'll take this ring off. So the case itself is a very simple case. It is black with a texture to it. It's got Neewer branding here. You can see that. The sides are the same texture. This side is faceless. You got the bottom where you've got the USB port and the speaker and the S Pen hole. It's a pretty big cutout, so even if you have a big USB cable, it should fit in this cutout. I haven't had any issues. The power button and the volume rocker are on the side. They are built into the case, and they don't pop out very much. They're not raised. I don't know if you can see that, but they're not really raised. So they are kind of hard to feel, to hit when you're not looking at them, because they are so flush with the case. It does make it a little bit challenging. They feel smooth compared to the case, but you really kind of have to pay attention to where what it feels like when you're pushing. There's a little bit of an indent here with the volume one, so that you can kind of feel it. And then the top, you got your additional holes for probably microphones. That's the way the case looks on the side. And then you've got the back where the lenses are. You've got this little piece here where the adapter fits onto, and it's raised a little bit, so you do have protection for your lenses when you lay it down flat. It is raised. You can see that especially here where the adapter is. It is raised. And you can see here the 3 magnets, which line up with the 3 magnets on the adapter. So when you install it, it tells you which way to push, and you just kind of have to do this all by feel. So you make sure the magnets are down, and there's guides here on the sides. You can kind of see that there are guides. They're kind of hard to see on camera, but the magnets click on right away. But you want for that guide, this little flat piece, to start and then slide in, and you'll feel it kind of snap into place. It doesn't really make a noise. It kind of sort of can make a noise. And once you have that in place, then you have your adapter, and you can screw your lenses into the middle one here. And you have this 67mm adapter for ND filters or whatever other filters that you want to use. So once you have that in place, then you can make use of your lenses. This is the main piece. It says telephoto 240 millimeters. And then the model number, LS19. There is a screw-on lens cap for one end. Very handy for keeping it clean and protected. And then you've got a rubber lens cap or protector on the other end for where you screw it in. And again, this is 17 millimeters. So you can find phone cases from other manufacturers, and you can find lenses from other manufacturers that use this same 17 millimeter. So if there's other lenses that you've seen that are 17 millimeter and you have a phone case that takes a 17 millimeter lens, then you can use it. It doesn't just have to be this one. And I'm going to screw this into this middle piece. And once it's nice and tight, and I take the lens cap off, you can see how big that is. It's big and it is heavy. So here's one of the challenges that I noticed right away is when I'm holding it, I really have to try to hold my hand steady, because this lens adds a lot of weight. And if you're trying to take a picture handheld, you really have to pay attention to your steadiness of your grip, because it definitely changes the center of gravity for the phone. It becomes very top heavy at that point, and you can really struggle to get a nice steady grip and a nice steady shot So that's one thing I noticed right away, that depending on what you're taking photos of, you may want to use a tripod just so you can keep it steady. The thing about using a tripod will be, though, is again, you've changed the center of gravity of this phone dramatically. So instead of being well balanced from top to bottom, now it's very, very top heavy. And whatever tripod you use, you're going to have to consider that when you place it on the tripod, that it probably needs to be very upright, and your legs on the tripod need to be spread pretty far so that you can keep it nice and stable. But once you have a good grip on it, whether you're using a tripod or a handheld, then you're ready to go. That's all you need to do. You've got the adapter on, you've got your lens on, and now you're ready to go. And I'll show some examples of some photos that I took with my Samsung S25 Ultra, with and without the lens, so you can see what it does. But this is the Neewer macro lens. It is, to show you exactly how this is the manual that comes with this product. It says, I don't know if it's focusing, but it says Neewer 2x teleconverter lens with Marco. I got this. This is the way it came with Marco, like Marco Polo. I'm sure it should be macro, whatever. 200 and 300 for smartphone telephoto cameras. So again, it doesn't specify what phone because it works with whatever case you've got. As long as the case can take this adapter, or an adapter and a case that will allow you to use 17mm lenses, then you can use this. And this kit comes, like I said, with the 200 and the 300. I haven't really used these extensively. I think the weight of just this one is enough, that I really haven't spent a lot of time with the 200 and the 300. I've just used the one that comes here, that comes pre-installed, but everything fits nicely into this little case. The other consideration that I would want you to think about when considering buying lenses is you end up with a lot of stuff to pack away. Like if you're trying to travel, or if you're just trying to go somewhere and take photos during the day. Obviously, you can keep the phone case on the phone if you like it. As you saw the beginning of the video, it does work with MagSafe accessories. So I've got this ring here that I can use, and it still allows me to, prop the phone up, and that still works. The MagSafe type accessories still work, and they grip pretty well. I use this ring all the time. So if you didn't like the fact that, maybe this case doesn't come with a stand, you can use a magnetic ring stand if you like. So that is one thing. The biggest complaint I have with the case itself really stems in with the side. You can probably see it, that it's not really on here. And I've tried. You can see the edge of the phone through here. On this side, you see the edge of my screen protector, but you don't see any metal. But on this side, I don't know if the camera's really picking that up, but there's metal that's showing through from here all the way down to here. So it's not really fully protecting this metal edge. And the only time I've ever dropped my phone, it was in a case that had a little bit of exposure to metal, and I got a scratch on the metal right up here. So if I were to drop this case, I imagine that this is probably, even though the rubber's still there and it is raised a little bit, but if I dropped it face down, I'd probably scratch. It's possible that I would scratch this metal. I can't get it to fit on. If I squeeze it on, it just pops right back off. So that's my biggest complaint about this case, is I haven't been able to figure out how to really make it fit. The buttons do still work, even though it looks like they're not really in there. They work fine. I mean, you saw I just pushed it and the screen lit up. So that is a drawback. It's an aesthetic drawback because it looks bad, but it's also a functional drawback because, again, if you drop it, this is a point of weakness. That's my biggest complaint with the case. Otherwise, it's a very low profile, pretty thin case, reasonably protective. If I dropped this on my wood floors, I wouldn't be worried. If I dropped it on tile or concrete, I'd be a little bit more nervous because it's not really one of those shock protection type of cases, but I think for everyday use, it's fine. And obviously you have the raised lip here over the cameras that keep them protected. The other thing I do want to mention is I have lens protectors on the cameras. So it works with the lens protectors, and it's the lens protector types that have the little rings on them. It fits, this case fits even with those lens protectors on. So I want to mention that for two reasons. If you have lens protectors and you were concerned about whether or not this would work, it does. And then the second reason is I have seen people get a little uptight about screwing lenses in and potentially damaging their lenses. Well, you can install lens protectors and you know you're not going to scratch the actual lens. At worst, you'd scratch the protector that's over it, but then you can replace it, and that's a simple replacement as opposed to scratching your lens and then who knows what it'll take to get that repaired or replaced. So yes, it works with lens protectors. I have one of those full lens section protectors on here with the little individual sections, and it's not causing me any problems. I mean, maybe that is why it doesn't fit properly now that I think about it. Anyway, that is something to consider. You can use it nevertheless. Perhaps that is causing my fit problems, and if that is causing my fit problems, just know it's usable. The adapter is still usable. Everything works as it should. It's just that, yeah, maybe that extra bulk is why it doesn't fit over here properly. Something to think about. So that's the phone case. You've seen the lenses. What does it actually look like when you take pictures? That's what we will talk about next. This first shot is to demonstrate the importance of selecting the right camera setting in the camera app with the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra. The instruction manual may say something about attaching to the 5x camera or whatever. You're going to attach to the camera in the middle from a physical perspective, the camera in the middle and the back. And you're going to ensure that the camera setting in the app is not 1x. You do not want it set to 1x or 2x because as you can see here, you can see the lens barrel in the shot. And that's also the case with 2x here. It's less noticeable at 2x, but this is not what you want unless you're going for like a special kind of unique shot where you want the barrel visible. In general, you don't want it visible and you want the camera setting to be at 3x, and then you can't see the lens anymore in your shot. That's important. So here in this shot, I'm demonstrating the differences between 3x and 5x for the next few shot comparisons so that you can see kind of what it looks like, what the differences are, what can you get with this lens versus what you could get with the 5x lens that's already right there in your camera settings. So on the left here, we've got the Samsung S25 Ultra using the 5x in the camera app on the left, and we've got it at 3x because that's the only one that really works with this lens on the right with the macro lens attached. There is a color shift here that you will notice, and you will notice that throughout the rest of these comparison shots that sometimes there is a color shift. I think this is probably one of the most noticeable shifts. The reality is that neither one of these colors is really perfect. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle. It's not as blue as it is on the left, and it's not really as yellow it is on the right. It's really somewhere in the middle. It's a brighter, lighter pink. If I had to pick, I'd say that the color on the right is probably closer. The one on the left is just a little bit too blue. So you do see here right away that you can get a color shift. The lighting is the same with this. Now, the other thing that this shot demonstrates is the importance of having a steady hand when you're using this really heavy lens. If you're shaky, you're going to get blur. And you can see that here. It's out of focus. I took this picture a few times, and this was the best one that I could get. The lens is really heavy. I think ideally, if you're taking static shots like this, you would probably want to put it on a tripod. I was holding the camera downward, so a tripod wasn't really an option. I just kind of had to hold my breath and do the best I could. But here, at least you can see how much closer you can get theoretically with the macro lens versus using the 5x. You do get pretty close with the 5x, and I like the detail in this photo on the left. But the color, obviously, if that's important to you, then just keep in mind that you might get better colors with the 3x and not the 5x, which we see here. This is the regular 3x setting in the camera app on the left, and the same 3x setting with the macro lens attached on the right. And you see these colors are closer. They're pretty close. I think the lens, especially in certain lighting situations, does tend to add a slight bit of tint in certain shots, but these two shots are pretty close to the same color. And here again, neither one is perfect. I think probably the color on the right is maybe ever so slightly closer. But here again, you see that the shot is just ever so slightly out of focus because it, again, really hard to handle this heavy lens and keep the shot steady. Now we're looking at a blue yarn, so we can see a different kind of color shift if applicable. We've got the 5x on the left, and we've got the 3x with the macro lens attached on the right. You will notice that the center of the shot on the right is a little bit more in focus than it is on the left, but the shot on the left is a little bit more zoomed in, a little bit closer, ever so slightly. These shots are pretty similar, but you can see that the yarn is a little bit bigger on the left because we're zoomed in ever so slightly more. The colors here are pretty close, even though, again, we've got the different lenses here. So again, the lighting and whatever you're taking a picture of, I think makes a difference in terms of how the lighting balances out in the shot. I think for me, if I was trying to figure out which one I'd use if I wanted a close-up of this yarn, I'd probably go for the shot on the right here, but neither one of them is terrible. Then we have the same yarn with the 3x camera without the lens on the left, and then the 3x with the lens attached on the right. And these shots are pretty close. Again, you have to kind of be careful with how you position the macro lens, how you want to make sure you keep it in focus. This is about as close as I could go and keep it reasonably in focus, but not have too much blurriness because it's too close, as opposed to blurriness from too much shake. These shots are really pretty similar, but again, you do see a slight color shift, slightly more yellow on the right. So the lens can add a bit of a color shift depending on the shot. I like the shot here on the left better, but I think it's just because I tend to prefer shots that are a little bit more blue. And again, the color on the right is probably more accurate. We have different yarn here. Same kind of color shift, bluer on the left with the 5x and a little bit more yellow with the 3x on the right. Again, from just a general shot perspective, I prefer the shot on the left, but these are pretty comparable in terms of how much detail you got here. The photo on the right this is probably one of the least blurry photos I was able to take. These shots are pretty comparable. The one on the left is in more focus. Everything is a little bit more in focus on the left, and the color is a little bit more blue. But these are pretty similar. Good enough for sharing social media. Same kind of deal with the photos. Now with the text, we've got the 5x on the left, and we've got the 3x with the macro on the right. With these shots of this manual for this lens, and again, Marco, I don't know why it says Marco. That's so crazy to me. But this is what they publish. This is what they put in the box. So we've got obviously a little bit of a closer shot with the macro. We've got these aberrations on the edges. I could not seem to resolve that by moving forward or backwards, and I'm presenting it as I took them. I didn't notice this kind of aberration in the other shots, but it's possible that it's there and it's just a lot more obvious here because we're dealing with straight lines and text. Perhaps makes it a little bit more noticeable. And the shot on the right, again, a little bit blurry, really hard to keep that lens steady. With the 3x on the left, obviously we're fitting a little bit more in the shot. The 3x with the macro, now you can see here how much more detail or how much more information you can kind of zoom into and keep the text reasonably sharp. On the right, we still have those weird aberrations on the edges. And then the pages of the manual, which ironically talk about how important it is to keep steady when you're taking photos or doing video, because you can get blurriness very easily. And yes, you can, as you can see here. We got the 5x on the left, and we've got the 3x with the macro lens on the right. And it's blurry. I took this photo a few times and finally decided, okay, this is about as good as it's going to get. But this is what you can get with text. You have a little bit more zoomed in look with the macro. And then the 3x, obviously, you're going to get a little bit more zoom in with the macro on the right than you are with just the 3x on the left. And again, you notice little bits of color shift here. With the white background and the black text, you can see a little bit of a color shift. And again, the lighting was the same in both of these. And so these are the shots that I took to kind of show off what a person who is not at all an expert can accomplish with this macro lens. You can get close to things. You can get some really nice shots. I don't know when I would use the macro lens versus just using the built-in 5x. It does give a different look, and you can get a different focal point. But if I'm just taking close-ups, I think in general, unless I know I'm going to be able to put my phone on a tripod, I'm probably not going to use the macro lens for just regular macro shots. It really needs to be a specialty kind of situation because it is heavy and you really do need to make sure that it's mounted properly so you get the best shot.